Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. This is Authors Bantering, where two writers talk about current writing community issues. Today is going to be a fun one, I can promise you up front, because we're talking about one of my most hated topics of all time, which is NaNoWRIMO.
And I'm curious to hear your hatred on this issue. This
I
is very interesting how angry this makes you. This
I
is again.
abhorrently hate that. I hate it. I admit it's a bit of an irrational hatred, but I hate it. It embodies, I think, some of the worst aspects of writing under the guise of some of the best aspects of writing. So, for those that don't know what NaNoWRIMO is, I figure we'll start there first, which is NaNoWRIMO is where in the month of November, people set out to write a novel. The novel's 50,000 words, and they write it over the course of the month of November. So over the course of 30, 31 days, whatever it is. It's like 1,600, 1,700 words a day, basically what it takes to write 50,000 words of a first draft of a novel. And so I'm the guy who has the write every day kind of vlog, right? I'm the person who's out here advocating for showing up every day. So you'd probably figure I'd be in the camp of Nano, right? I'm in the camp of getting people out there and writing consistently every day because they're doing it for at least 30 days. The problem is that I think NaNoWRIMO encourages the worst aspect of writing, which is showing up in writing a terrible draft just to get a word count down. When I talk about writing, when I talk about showing up every day, I constantly hammer home the idea that you need to show up and you need to write, but you need to write with a conscious effort. You need to focus and practice your writing. You cannot show up and just hammer out, 600 words of whatever just comes to your mind and hope that a story comes out. And people will think, well, I'm going to write a terrible first draft. It's a crappy first draft. Then I'm going to revise it and fix it. I'm going to ask you, how well has that worked for you in the past? Because when you write a first draft, you need to be focused on having at least a quality draft. It cannot be crap. You're going to throw 3/4 out and rewrite it from the beginning. Most people do not have the stomach to do that. And you're shaping your story in a certain way that is very hard to redirect. Every sentence, I use the analogy all the time of laying tile, right? When you lay tile, that first piece, if it's a little bit crooked, everything else becomes crooked in that entire wall pattern. Same thing with writing. If your sentences, your paragraphs, your chapters are crooked, right? If they're off, the entire story is off as well. It's difficult to ever come back from that and make changes without having to throw your whole piece out. So what I advocate for is writing drafts that are very conscious. First drafts that take time to put down, but are ones that when you go back to revise, you actually have a shape and a structure to a story that you can revise. You have a means basically of reworking your story that still maintains a shape of a story, not having to throw it and redo everything just because you were so eager to get 50,000 words down in a month instead.
No, this is making a lot of sense. I think I mostly agree with a lot of the things you're saying. I think that writing that is done just to get words on a page without sort of writer intention, I guess is a good name for it, where if
Yeah.
you're not sure where your story is going. Like if you are not sure that you need to get from point A to point B to point C, even if you're figuring out as you go, in a pantser kind of way, I think it still has to have intention. If your story zigs and zags and it goes all over the place, it's going to be very, very difficult to revise later.
Exactly.
I also think you make a good point in that many writers, I won't even go so far as to say most, but there are a lot of writers, particularly beginning writers, who are better writers than they are revisers or
Yeah.
editors. And they can put words down on the page the first time, but when it comes to, taking out the pen, making a second draft or a third draft, reorganizing sentences, changing plot elements, making bigger developmental changes, a lot of people freeze and they're not sure how to do that. That's an acquired skill. It's one that's not emphasized as much in school. When we're learning to write, it's not talked about as much in writers groups, and certainly isn't talked about as much in NaNoWRIMO circles, which is all about the drafting process. And
Exactly.
so if a writer is not a strong reviser, they're going to they're going to owe it to themselves to have a stronger rough draft when they sit down the first time, because they're not going to have
Yeah.
to do as much heavy lifting in revision. I like revising a lot. I'm a better reviser than I am a drafter. I'm a minority in that maybe, but I'll write the shittiest rough draft you've ever seen to borrow a phrase from Anne Lamott, shittiest rough draft you've ever seen, and then go back and revise it because I have confidence in my revising skills.
Exactly.
But if you don't have those revising skills, probably that laying tile metaphor is going to be much more useful for you.
Very good. And the thing to keep in mind too is when you revise, do you throw out your entire draft, or do you pretty much have a good structure at least and just rework the sentences and rework maybe subjects and themes and add subplots and all?
No, this is a really important distinction and distinct. I do not throw out the entire draft. If I throw out the entire draft, is because the story doesn't work.
Yeah.
I might throw out 98% of a draft,
yeah,
or 98% of the words on the page, but still that 2%, that thing that came out in the first draft that's worth saving, the pacing or the structure or the characters or the way the scene is laid out, something about what I wrote is going to help me get to the second draft in a way that I wasn't able to get to that second draft before I wrote the first draft. There's always something there that is worth building off of in revision.
Yeah. And how long does it take you normally to write your first drafts?
It depends. The novel I'm working on right now, it's been in the planning stage for a long time. It's very complex. I was doing a lot of outline work, a lot of figuring out stuff as I go, and I needed to take a lot of time away from it to really, really think about it. In contrast to my first novel, where it's simpler and I was able to, get more of it on paper right away. I think the first novel, it took me just over 6 months to get a draft down. And again, this was working with a day job and being busy and all those kinds of things.
And what's the word count?
90,000.
Okay.
Just under.
So it took you 6 months to write a 90,000 word first draft. And people now, and obviously you're a published author. So, and then the average, I guess, writer who shows up for these NaNoWRIMOs thinks they're going to get half that in a month. Right, it's this something for nothing mentality. I think that comes with this sort of thing. It's the idea that you can just show up basically and crank something out very quickly in like a month and have it be quality. You have to be a really practiced author with a lot of research done, and like you have to have kind of every single duck in the world that you could imagine to pull this off. And
I think the key word there is quality that you say. If you expect that the 30 days, the 50,000 words that you cranked out, especially as a new author, is going to be quality and is going to be worth submitting and isn't going to need a lot of work or be the germ of something else, then I think you're using NaNoWRIMO wrong. Like you shouldn't be seeing it as that way. Like, there's kind of a joke in the literary world that, December is a bad time to query agents because all the people who wrote shitty NaNoWRIMO novels are going to be sending them to agents in December, and agents don't like that. Their inboxes are flooded, And so it's this idea that those writers maybe think their NaNoWRIMO novels are more quality than they really are. They aren't using the 30 days as a chance to get a draft down on paper that they're going to be able to fine tune and build off of later.
Exactly, and that really hits my point home right there, which is you're mistaking a lot of your work for actual productivity when it's really just for most likely procrastination, right? You are just turning stuff out basically just for the sake of turning things out to hit this sort of arbitrary number. And even if you're not one of the people that's delusional enough to think that you can submit next month, right, after you write that first draft, even if you're not in that category, I'm betting you are not willing basically to throw out a lot of that draft. You're not willing to throw out the 98% to put the 2% in. And even if you are, would it not be better basically to have spent, say 6 months writing that really good first draft where you could keep more of it in and have a better shape and not have to reshape it? I only see downsides to it, and the only upside is it keeps you your butts in the seat, right? That's the one upside, that you're showing up, right? That's the one thing I'll give it. So many other things, it's the opposite of what I think any real quality writing is going to be. And when we talk about throwing stories out, I'm not just talking about plot. I'm not talking about just revising your plot. I'm talking about the way you tell your story. When I talk about basically revision, I'm talking about the style. Your story, you could write the same plotted story a million different ways because the way you tell it, each sentence basically focuses on a different aspect of the story. Each viewpoint is shown just in the way you describe it, in the way, the language you use, the choice. And there's so many factors and decisions that go into making these decisions. And if you're going to fast draft something in a month, you're being hasty. You're being very, very hasty with these decisions. You're throwing them out. You're treating it you're treating this process almost very superficially. And Yeah, there are some people that don't care. There are people that don't care about, to a great degree about how their prose is going to look. They don't care about how, the word choice and selection, if they repeat words, if they, if they have poor word choice, if they could have told the story from a different, they write a party scene, and they could have told it from a different perspective or a different character's perspective to get the same sense of scene. They don't think of these small details, right? It's to use a movie metaphor. It's like having an amateur director come in and directing a movie, and then having a professional come in and go, no, you could do the shot this way instead. You could show these characters in this scene this way. You could do a panning shot here. You could do different lighting, different effects, different music. It's someone who's very detail oriented that can get these things right, and someone that does not care and only wants the superficial of just having this draft done, that I think falls into this NaNoWRIMO camp, and I only see detriment.
Yeah, I would say that most writers, especially above a certain degree of experience, would be better off using their writing time in other ways.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to things like planning and outlining and taking a little bit more time to produce something. When I think about writers who would do well to do NaNoWRIMO, I think it can be of value for writers who are really having trouble getting started or having some sort of writing routine. I think some people need that external sort of framework of, okay, November 1st to November 30th, I'm going to write a novel. It's going to be this number of words about, it's going to be this number of words per day. They need that sort of structure to get them started.
Yeah.
That being said, as we just discussed, that writer who needs that structure, who is probably at a very beginner, emerging, just starting out level, would do wise to remember that they've just written a draft and that the quality isn't going to be there.
Yeah.
And they can use this either as something to revise or as a springboard to, okay, I just learned how to write 50,000 words. How can I take that process and carry it forward to my next story?
Bingo. Yes.
Or a story that I am going to develop in a bigger way. So you use it as a learning process rather than a finished product.
Yep. I completely agree with you. And that's... Yeah, if there's one good thing out of it, that it is like I said, it is the routine of it, right? And I think if you can use it as a springboard, if you're like, okay, I'm going to show up, I'm going to write every day for the month of November, and then continue that and use it as a springboard, I think that's a strong thing. That's what it takes. But yeah, it's consistently, and that's the one celebration, right? That's the one thing even the NaNoWRIMO advocates will say is, hey, listen, we're writing consistently here, right? We're getting a consistent writing block in. It's the question is, can you sustain it? And to be frank, if you're going to take writing seriously, NaNoWRIMO should not be every month. That should be kind of like your year, right? Like your every your every month in a sense. Not that I'm saying you should hit 50,000 words. I don't think that's a very heavy number to hit, and I don't think you'd have to be doing this professionally, basically. I think to be able to hit that consistently with some good quality stuff.
So I just did the math actually. So NaNoWRIMO 30 days, 50,000 words, that's 1,666 words a day.
Okay.
We just talked about my first novel, so 90,000 words, 6 months, rough estimate, but it's there. That's about 500 words a day, which granted is about the pace that I cook. Granted, I don't write every day. I'll write fewer days a week, but for a longer period of time, but averages out,
Exactly. And that's you writing, so that's you probably writing what, like 2 hours a day on average a week? You space it out?
Between 2 or 3 days a week I would do, but usually 2.5 or more hours.
Yeah, so all right. So
let's say anywhere between
you can tell we're not math majors here.
Hours a week is what I was doing.
Yeah, that's the point. So you're getting probably close to some of the same amount of time as far as sessions that would need to be hit this in a month, but you're spreading that over 6 months. And again, I'm telling you right now, someone who does it in 6 months will have a better quality story than someone who does it in 1 month. I can almost guarantee you.
They'll have a better quality story, and I would argue they'll have also built up better work habits
than
a very consistent burnout. 30 days, I got it, I'm done. Now I'm gonna take a break and maybe not write again for a very, very long time.
A year.
And when I do, and for a whole year maybe.
Yeah.
And then when I do,
next Nano, you come around.
That I built up during November aren't quite going to be there, as opposed to somebody who paced themselves and really, really played the long game in setting up that 6 months or a year or a longer period of time to write that draft.
Bingo. Yeah, no, you're exactly right, and that's yeah, that's the other problem too. Is people don't stay consistent with it. People take time off, and if you're thinking 30-day sprints of time, I guarantee that time off is not going to be just a day or two off and then getting back to the. I guarantee it's going to be a long stretch there, and
Yeah.
that's where the procrastination. That's where you never even get around to rewriting this thing.
I'm glad we talked about this though. I hadn't realized you felt quite this vehemently about it.
I
And
do.
it's interesting for me to enunciate because again, I'm all about long-term habits and
Yeah.
long-term goals and things that are more consistent versus this sort of, very quick burnout kind of mentality.
Yeah, and I've tried it before. I'm someone that's definitely tried it before, way back. I tried it, and I never hit it. I mean, even when I was trying, I never hit it. But see, this is not me. This is not like my hatred is not. I couldn't get this. I hate this whole thing. It's just I do not think it's a smart way to approach the writing process at all. But woo. So with that, I hope you definitely enjoyed that. as much as I want to maybe a little bit of a rant, I don't know. But like I said, as always, we take questions from the audience here. So any kind of topics, any kind of ideas you want to see, leave it in the comment section, and maybe we can address it in another video. We post these things every Monday. And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. We're going to be signing off here in a second, so we will see you next week. I'm Josh Bresslin. That's Ian M. Rogers. And yeah, until then, stay safe and happy writing.
Take it easy.